flew here, and I say it just for an example, in my own jet. And how did I get it? I managed and had money saved. In the middle of a crisis, the guy who got liquid could buy assets. But to save, I had to not do some things, hold back on some things, and not compete with nobody else. I had to keep putting it away like Joseph did. You know, some people think that saving is demonic. You know, well, the Lord has blessed me, he'll give me plenty. You better save in times of plenty. Joseph told Pharaoh, the crisis is coming, and there ain't gonna be no miracle. We're gonna have to save the grain in the good time. Saving is not a curse, it's a sign of discipline. I beg you to listen to God. God says, I will not send rain to you until I seek management. You pray for promotion, and God is watching how you take off sick leave, and you ain't sick. He's watching how you take the people's paperclip from the job, or use their copier to make your private copies. And God is saying, you are mismanaging other people's property. How can I give you your own business? Management. God makes you rent first to test your management of other people's property. Well, this ain't my apartment. I ain't fixing this light. Wait a minute. You live here. Are y'all quiet for a reason? Keep smiling so I don't think I'm getting at you. Psalm 115 says, may you be blessed of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He says, the highest heavens belong to who? The Lord. But the earth he gave to you to manage. This is our responsibility. Earth is our legal management authority. We were given dominion over earth. And therefore, our mandate is literally a management mandate. Now, I want to close with an example of how to manage according to Jesus' response. Luke chapter 16 is a management session by Jesus. He writes, Luke writes this in detail. I love it. Luke says, Jesus told his disciples this interesting story. He said there was a rich man. Everybody's a rich man. Whose manager was accused of wasting his possession. I am reading the Bible, okay? The word is in the Bible. Manager. He says a rich man whose manager was accused of what? Wasting his possession. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management. Words of Jesus. Because you cannot be manager any longer. Here's what I learned. According to Jesus, God fires people. I love Jesus. You're fired. Now, some folks work in this church, and they think because that's their pastor, they can do anything. If he's a good pastor, he'll fire people who are not being accountable. Jesus said, you will not be manager any longer. And look at the response. The Bible says that the manager went out and he began to collect all the credits that were out there, the creditors. He began to get them the master's money. He began to do his work. He went and tried to make up for lost time. He began to add value to the company. He got all the money that was out there. And Jesus said the manager was commended by the rich man. And he said this to the manager. He says, the people of this world are wiser than the people of light. Now this is a management course. The people of this world are wiser. Shrewd means wiser, not evil. He says, they are wiser than the children of light in dealing with their own kind. They understand how to manage. And then verse 9 is depressing. He says, I tell you, use the worldly wealth. The King James says, make friends with the world. Use worldly wealth. Make friends with the world so that you may learn what they know. Jesus is talking. Go to the world, he says, and learn from them. Gain friends from them. Learn how they are managing. And when the wealth is gone, you will have welcome into the kingdom of heaven as well. All right, let me break this down. He says, look, the people in the world seem to be managing better than my people. He said that y'all are cursing them even though you work for them. Now, I'm confused. You keep confessing that you are blessed, but you work for them. You say your God is great, but you work for them. They don't go to church, and you go to church every week, but they are your boss. They pay your salary. They can even fire you. These people got power. Now he's explaining something. He's saying, look, here's why they got power. Not because they are unrighteous or righteous. It's because of management. If you don't learn to manage your resources, you become employed by those who do. The next verse is so blatant. Luke 16:10. Jesus speaking. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever can be dishonest with little will be dishonest with much. So even if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? Are you listening to Jesus? Management. He says, look, don't pray for stuff. Let me see you manage what you have first. If you cannot be faithful over the little, how can I give you rulership over much? I measure what I give you by what you're doing, what you have. Look at that verse there. He says, if you cannot be trusted with other people's property, who will give you property of your own? We keep saying we want our own business. God says, no problem. Then I'll give you a job first. What's the job for? To watch you manage other people's time, other people's paper, other people's machines, other people's property. He watches to see how you manage that. Then he will give you property of your own, he says. Many times, a lot of us go into business and we wonder why we fail. Because we never learned the lessons from being employed. Employment taught me how to own my own businesses. He watches how you manage the little. And then he trusts you with more. So the issue here then is management attracts plenty. I remember when I was a little boy in the Bahamas growing up, we were living in the poorest part of our island. It's called Bainstown. And there was the wall between right down the middle of our island. It was called Collins Wall. On the right side was all the white people, and the blacks were on the left side. We call it over the hill. Yes, we had apartheid in the Bahamas. And I used to wonder, my parents used to be singing all the time in church. God has the sheep on 1,000 hills. But we could not get mutton. They would sing, my God owned the cows on 1,000 hills. We couldn't eat steak. The folks had car, we had to walk. And I was confused. I kept thinking, they have a different God maybe? And I became angry at God. And I remember as a 14-year-old, 3 o'clock in the morning, I went out in the dirt, knelt on the ground. I looked up in the stars and I said, if you exist, you are prejudiced. I was angry as a 14-year-old. I saw my mother and father laboring so hard, going to church, and I'm sleeping on the floor. And they're trying to feed 11 kids and singing every week. And I became angry. I said, God, you like them